This episode is brought to you by the RVA Podcast Network. Find more information at rvapodcast.org.
We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such.
It's a new year, so you know what that means. That means a new season. It's season 4. Intro a little revamped, microphone a little revamped, branding a little revamped. We're now officially the Past BT Pod. So welcome all Spotify,
Buzzsprout,
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and all podcast platforms. Here you're going to get a flavor of sports, music, tech, video games. Once in a while, we'll get an Ass of the Week and a new part that's going to be coming in. It's not mentioned on the season 3, but we do what's called Pass the Message. So definitely you want to tune in and get some good content on the Pass with your host BT.
What is up? What is good? What's going on, y'all? Episode 307 of the Past BT Pod is here. I am your host, BT. I've been back and forth about doing a show. I've been in between about doing things. I went through some branding stuff. This is definitely not the show that you'll expect to be a brief and quick show. I will go ahead and get that out of the way early. I did look back at some of my numbers and my stats, and I'm, definitely going to be learning to progress and promote the show more often. I've had a few accountability conversations with others and internally, and it's going to lead to you all getting much more crisp and clear content. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Is you want to come in and make sure that you're hearing something worthwhile and not just me running my mouth just to sound like I know what I'm talking about, and I'm kind of learning it as I go. And this episode is no exception. There's going to be a good amount of conversation on some transparent things, and there's going to be some internal assessing and breakdowns that I've been put in a position of having. And it's caused me to really learn to think before acting and putting things, in the full perspective. And I know I say a lot of these messages a lot of times, but I personally can say today it definitely fits the bill with the way the climate has hit and with all that is and has been going on. So I'm not going to bore y'all to death with a long-winded intro, which I already have. We're going to get into our topics. We're going to get into our sun signs. We're going to get into our messages, and we're going to make this a great show. So as you all know, when we start off the show, we always like to start off with our angel number, which equates to our episode number. And today is, we're on episode 307, as I mentioned earlier. We will talk about the angel number 307. The increase is a note for all who have been seeing angel number 307. The guardian angels are sending you a message that you shall increase in all aspects of your life. You have been faithful and consistent. Therefore, the angel numbers will begin to reward you with an increase, consistent increase and fulfillment. Angel number 307 is telling you to continue with all that you have been doing, and that when things improve, you should not stop. Angel number 307 is a sign of wholeness. If you and your partner have been trying to make a baby recently, this is a sign that sooner than you think, your prayers will be answered. Your interpretation of wholeness may also include growth and multiplication. The angels encourage you to continue with your consistency. Your prayers will be answered too, as your God has not forgiven you. Angel number 307 symbolism is encouraging you to be more sensitive to those around you, always displaying love and affection at all times. I'm going to get into that in a moment too, after we finish reading this. If you have been seeing the angel number 307, it is a sign that lots of uncertainties will be introduced in your life. The angels do not want you to be afraid, but to be of courage. When the uncertainties arrive, take them in stride and confidence. Change is inevitable, and such is life. However, the angels assure you that all shall be well soon, and this season of your life will soon come to an end. The angels are encouraging you that even with the uncertainties, continue to be consistent and do not lose hope and faith with number 3, number 0, and number 7 in your aid. Sensitivity is note from angel number 307, meaning the angels are communicating to you to be more sensitive to others. You may have strong personality and a strong sense of mind, but do not let your opinions affect those that are around you. It is possible to be strong-minded, but do not be mean in the process. Angel number 307 symbolism is encouraging you to be more sensitive to those around you, always displaying love and affection at all times. Congratulations is a note from angel number 307. The angels have seen how faithful and sincere you have been in the past. Angel number 307 shows that you were in an incriminating situation and continue to be faithful. You may have found yourself in a situation that demanded your integrity and your character was left intact. The angels advise you to be proud of yourself. The angels say, a good job, well done. The important part of reading this is something that has come up a couple of times on the show, and this is something that I have really started to realize is a real thing. And that is to really and truly learn how or know how to be willing to be kind to yourself. And or in that process, learn to give yourself grace. Pat yourself on the back. Give yourself benefit of the doubt. Don't look at what you haven't done. Spend time on looking at what you have done. And for some of us, it's almost an unnatural thing to not do because we look at, oh, I should have been here. I should have been this. I could have been here. And this would have been great if. And you wonder, it puts you in the what if category, but it also sets you up and prepares you for even greater. And that's what reading this angel number meaning entails. I personally will say without a shadow of a doubt that it's, I know for a fact that I've been doing a better job of trying to display love and affection and be caring towards other people than I've normally been. And at times it's doable and other times it's challenging. And that's just kind of what it comes down to. So if you are able to, if you have the chance to, this is something that you definitely should try to work on in your day or through your routine in reading this actual post. So I want to start with that and make that your worthwhile tip or gem for this week and for the upcoming, before we go into our next episode. So as you all know, I like to bring y'all up to speed on the infamous picks or lack thereof of picks. And it's been an amazing joyride to say the least. Last week was very, very risky when it came to my weekly picks, because on some occasions I'll say, okay, job well done. It didn't turn out as bad as I expected. And other times I look at my list and I'm like, what was I thinking? I'm waiting for my list to load up now, and you'll see what I mean when in saying this. I'm making sure now that I'm getting better with not skipping weeks, because I just realized I did week 4 and didn't do another week until week 8. And then I skipped week 9, oddly enough. But for week 10, I went 8-6. And a lot of games literally were just a matter of one play or one different moment. Almost to say the one shining moment type of scenario, because I believe Houston and Arizona, let me correct myself, making sure, but there was one game that I called and I swore up and down I had it right. And Arizona made a miracle out of that game, which was actually the Arizona-Buffalo game. I was rude. I had Buffalo winning that game, and Arizona actually won. So that one kind of blindsided me just a tad. Miami did what I expected them to do. Most games were pretty much on par. The New England game surprised me, obviously, but that, it is what it is with that. I think everybody else kind of ran everything else kind of ran its course. I think Houston did still stay on Houston's path of losing because they did not win that game. Looking at how I picked, because I actually picked Houston over Cleveland. So, it is what it is. But as I mentioned, I'm 8-6. I was 8-6 for the week. Overall, 45, 28, and 1, leading into our week 11 picks. So we're not going to, prolong the process. We're going to go ahead and get to these weekly picks. And without further ado, we'll start with our Thursday night game, which is tonight. Arizona plays Seattle. Both teams 6-3. Arizona coming off a big win, even down to the point where they're already talking about Kyle Murray. I don't know if it's Kyle Murray in the MVP conversation, which is very telling this early on into the season, but also it also tells you that he's made a big mark. This is their they are division counterparts, so they've already played each other in week 7. Arizona actually won that game. Even with this game being on the road, I'm still gonna pick Arizona. Arizona looks like they're riding a good horse right now, so I'm not going, as the phrase or as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're running to our Sunday night games or Sunday morning games, afternoon, whatever. Tennessee at Baltimore, I'm gonna pick Baltimore. Detroit at Carolina, picking Carolina. Even without McCaffrey playing, the slated story was he was supposed to come back this week. It's being pushed back. If I were a betting man and I was out to make a chance on saying it, I don't think he's going to play this season. But that's my personal hot take, my blind or bland statement to say the least. Philadelphia at Cleveland. I'm going to pick Cleveland for that one. New England at Houston. Cam has been showing that he's ready. It looks like they, with them getting the win against Baltimore, as I mentioned earlier, picking New England for that one. Pittsburgh at Jacksonville. Pittsburgh moving on. Atlanta at New Orleans. Jameis Winston will be getting the start for this game. I'm picking New Orleans still. I would love to see Atlanta win that game because then that would cause a little bit of a trickling of a battle in the division. But right now it's kind of New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and the rest. That's kind of just how I've seen it so far. Cincinnati against Washington football team might be a surprise, but not really. I'm picking Cincinnati for that one. Miami at Denver. Miami's Tua Tagovailoa is showing that he's here. He's ready. Tua I see winning. Miami I see winning that game. Jets at Chargers. We can continue seeing the Jets lose. So I'll go ahead and give that one to the Chargers, as we are rolling into our 4:00 games, by the way. Green Bay at Indianapolis Colts. Possible game of the week. Even with them being on the road, I'm actually going to pick Green Bay for that game. Dallas at Minnesota. Minnesota surprised me in their last matchup. So I'm going to go ahead and give them another shot. And I'll give them a shot on this one. I'm going to pick Minnesota. For the late night game, Kansas City at Las Vegas. Kansas City. And that's just kind of where I'm at with that. And our Monday night game, the LA Rams against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Picking Tampa Bay at home. So those are my picks. I will go back in and make sure I have them all updated, cleared, resolved, all up to speed and up to par as to who's who and who done did what and all that type of stuff. So we'll make that a fun little breakdown from there. So before I get into, well, you know what? We'll start off a little strong this week. I did get updates and notifications about this story. It was a fun viewing or fun witnessing of seeing Tiger Woods give the green jacket to Dustin Johnson, which I believe Tiger Woods, I want to say, won 5. He won 4 or 5 Masters in his career. He had recently been, his most recent was last year. And, it was a shock because of how well he played. The big story was Tiger, I think, went 10 over, or he took 10 shots on a par 3. I forgot what hole it was, but that was definitely talked about. And DJ or Dustin Johnson didn't expect to go the way it did, but he had a great run and was able to get his first Masters, if I'm remembering correctly. So when Dustin Johnson, winner of the 2020 Masters, walked up to the hill towards his destiny and hearing nothing at all, it was a little strange. Sure, there were only a few hundred people ringing the green, members and their guests, Augusta National workers done with their shifts, media and family, but they were silent as if waiting for a cue. And then the 3 guys standing up in the scoreboard started clapping, and everyone around the green followed in their wake. It wasn't deafening like when Tiger wins. It wasn't earth rumbling like when Phil does, but it did the job. It was right around that moment that Johnson turned to his brother/caddy Austin and asked, "Where do we stand?" In other words, how far were they? Yes, Dustin Johnson, who set a new scoring record at Augusta, who buried the field by 5 strokes, who's the first player to get to -20 in the Masters, had no idea on the 72nd hole if he was actually winning or not. It's a vintage DJ anecdote. Perfectly in tune with the guy who, until a few hours before, was far more known for the majors he'd let get away than the one singular that he'd won. 6 times, including Sunday, Johnson had entered the final day of a major with the lead. 5 times he came up short, a victim of everything from 72nd hole misfires to bizarre rules violations to a performance for the ages by someone else. So when he started to wobble early in the round, bogeying the 4th and 5th holes to allow the field to draw within a single stroke, it wasn't hard to start thinking, here we go again. And they just go into breakdown of him going on to win his first major, which for him is a big deal. And it's a big deal in general. Like I said, even watching it in the breakdown of seeing Tiger be the person to give him the actual green jacket, that made it even more ceremonial. So congratulations to DJ for winning the Masters this year. I am going to try my hardest to, and it's good that I have this site, and I guess I will add a link related to this. Teddy Bridgewater is trending toward missing Sunday's game against the Lions, which means I might be still having to stick with that game after all. Depends on what Matt Stafford does. We're going to talk NBA. I don't have every single inkling of an article in front of me about this, but I'm going to talk about as much as I can from what I did see and from the notifications that I received. The NBA draft happened yesterday. There was the draft happening played a very huge role into me recording or planning to record today. I wanted to be sure that if I did record, I was going to actually bring this to the forefront, because everyone has mixed feelings whenever a draft comes, because you really don't know who any of these people are. We really kind of got a minimal viewing of the players for this draft. And also the biggest factor that's not being talked about is this is the NBA's first virtual draft. As we all recall, the NFL did the virtual draft. It was a little different, but the NBA did their draft. I did not watch it live, but I was getting notifications left and right. And I'm going to talk about down the pike. I'm going to break down somewhat of an adjustment that I had to experience with watching the draft this year, but we'll get to that in a bit. The shocker, but not shocker, was that Anthony Edwards went first to Minnesota. The first unicorn that I consider, James Wiseman, went second. LaMelo Ball went third. From there, it kind of turned into a free for all because no one had Patrick Williams going fourth. Bottom line, Okoro went a lot higher than I expected at fifth. And I mean, for the most part, just looking at the overall draft, I will personally say that there were very few misses, but we also don't know much about what we're going to see because we're going to have a few things missing, which I'm going to get into in a moment about this coming NBA season. Just breaking down and looking at the entire draft as a whole, it's tough when you look at teams and how everybody picked. Bleacher Report did a pretty good job of breaking down different players who were picked up. Like Isaiah Stewart was picked 16th. I think I'm saying this now, and this is my early prediction. Isaiah Stewart and Cole Anthony are probably going to be my two sleepers. I even said this to my boy Lonnie, who was on episode 1 of my podcast. If you have not listened to that episode, please go back and listen to it. It's fun to listen to those shows now from how I was recording then to how I record now. But we were having a conversation today about, I brought it up to him and saying, Cole Anthony is going to be an interesting conversation with Orlando because I don't know if he's going to stay in Orlando after his rookie contract. He may not even be there the duration of his rookie contract. We've seen that happen time and time again with different players coming or going to the league, and it's just kind of a trend that we're used to. I'm reserving my I'm gonna reserve my voice for this show because I want to make sure I give you all what you need and we hear about everything that has occurred in this draft. So you will be hearing some clinking of ice. It's just water, I promise. This was the first NBA draft that as they call it, no blue bloods had anyone drafted in the lottery. Which your blue blood schools are Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas. I can almost throw Michigan State in there as a conversation for this as well. Anytime you look at or think of the draft, those are teams that easily come to mind for how they picked. So yeah, Kansas, Kentucky, UNC, Duke shut out of the NBA lottery for the first time since 2000. That tells you a lot. You're looking at 20 years worth of players, and the closest tap towards that option was Cole Anthony in North Carolina. Duke, as a matter of fact, did not have a first round pick. Like, let that sink in for a second. Like, I just want you to look at who has been drafted, guys who have been in the league, coming into the league, going to be playing in the league, and he didn't make, like, none of them made the first round. I want to make sure I'm looking at this. Okay. Jamias Ramsey probably was the biggest drop, but he's going to be somebody that I'm going to be very intrigued to watch because I kept up with him in high school. Texas Tech, we really didn't hear much about him. And then also something that has to be noted with a lot of the draft this year is that a lot of the guys who were drafted, you were kind of drafting them based on what you saw from their college season, or in some cases, it may be high school highlights. Like Wiseman, you were picking him solely on high school talent because he only played 3 games for Memphis. We all know about the Memphis scandal. I did talk about that on the show, I believe, about this time last year. So you really didn't get a full viewing of him. Vernon Carey Jr., who his father, I believe, played in the NFL. He was drafted number 30. He was drafted 32nd. He's going to Charlotte. I'm going to be intrigued to see him and Lonzo play together. If anything, I want to see how it's going to work, how they're going to run their offense. Because you already have Rozier there. You have Malik Monk. Of course, we have Miles Bridges. Just seeing how they're going to put a team together. And if you're building a team based on trying to get a playoff spot, or if it's just, all right, we're building, we're going to put some people in place and see what the draft does for us next year. Trey Jones, another Dookie, he went 11th. The first Kentucky player was not picked until like 22nd, I believe, by Philadelphia. I'm sorry, 21st by Philadelphia, Tyrese Maxey. Emmanuel Quickley was picked 25th. a lot of guys did not make it to the draft. I may or may not have mentioned it before. Mac McClung, who was a highly touted recruit, went to Georgetown. He actually transferred to Texas Tech this year, but he was not drafted, so he decided to go back to school. They did make an announcement or made a statement that Sharif O'Neal, older son of Shaquille O'Neal, is going to be eligible to play this year at LSU, even with him transferring. Because in most cases, if you transfer to a school, you have to sit out a year, but they are allowing him to play. I'm talking about all these players being drafted, but I also have left out the important factors such as players who there were a lot of trades that occurred. Ricky Rubio, oddly enough, is going back to Minnesota. Still trying to figure out how that worked. But, when things happen, you got to go with it where they move you. Cassius Stanley. This was interesting. Cassius Winston went 53rd to OKC. And then Cassius Stanley went 54th to Duke. That was who my boy was talking about because he's a Pacers fan. Cassius Stanley actually isn't a bad player. I am going to be very intrigued to see him and Oladipo work since they're both shooting guards. That's my immediate take on that. Nico Mannion is going to be learning because he got picked up by Golden State with the 48th pick, another point guard. Steph starting. There's no other way to put it. You're not going to move Steph to 2. Nico doesn't have a good shot yet. He still needs to work on his shot, in my opinion. Kenyon Martin Jr., Kmart's son, if you remember, Kenyon Martin was number 1 in his draft, I believe in 2000. I want to say either 2000 or 2001. He was picked number 1 out of Cincinnati and was injured majority of his college. I think it was his senior year at Cincinnati. I'm freestyling a little bit with this, but y'all know how I do. Everyone that I named, everyone that I've broken down is kind of what I'm looking at with this draft. It's going to be a play by ear type of thing. The only players that I did not talk about that I think we need to really keep an eye out for, I'm going to name 3 players. Onyeka Okongwu, Obi Toppin, and Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton is going to be interesting with the Kings because he'll be playing point guard as well as De'Aaron Fox. Possible two point guard backcourt will be a thing. Number 1 and number 2, Halliburton doesn't have a good jumper from just a little bit of highlights that I did see because we really didn't see Iowa State that much this year in basketball, so you already know what time it is. Obi Toppin was talked about as a highly picked. I mean, there was one point where he was in the top 5 in conversations, but the Knicks being able to get him at that spot is a big pickup. And Okongwu is one of your solid centers that is a true center, but he does have a good enough mid-range where he's not going to be limited to only playing in the box. And plus, he's playing in Atlanta, so that could affect some minutes for some of your other big men, just something to observe and think about. If you want to look at the rest of the list, I will go ahead and make sure that is a tab for you all to check out from the draft. Since we're talking about players, I will get to one story that's not really a huge story, but it is a story to address because we do know that the upcoming season, we do have an NBA season coming. Golden State has already made it clear what they're doing. They're looking to allow 50% fan capacity at their games. They're going to have like a home game coronavirus testing before you come into the game. So that will be costing a lot of money. I may or may not have talked. I think I talked about this I did talk about this on the last show about the NBA's cost of basketball and how they're going to do what they can to get some type of an income, even with there not being any actual, full capacity at games. I'm just going to I'm going to have my eyes very wide open about social distancing at basketball games. Just my take. We're sticking with Golden State a little bit, and I ain't gonna say I'm all over the place. There's a method to my madness. Y'all know how I do. There was a story that Klay Thompson had suffered a Achilles tear. There wasn't a certainty of how bad the injury was. They did come back today to confirm, and this was actually a couple of hours ago, that it was a season-ending tear to his right Achilles tendon. Thompson suffered a right leg injury during a workout in Southern California. He underwent the MRI today. Based on the type of tear, Thompson had been told to expect that he will make a full recovery. He was playing with several NBA players in Los Angeles and felt pain in the calf area when he landed on his leg. Warriors GM Bob Myers said late Wednesday night that Coach Steve Kerr and members of the Warriors training staff were expected to fly to LA to be there for him. It's one of those deals where you don't really know until you know. He missed, and this is what makes it tough. He already, this is a tear on his right ankle. If I'm looking at this right. Yeah, right Achilles tendon. His previous injury was he tore his ACL on his left knee back in 2019 when they played against Toronto. The Warriors were optimistic that Thompson, who spent more than a year rehabbing the injury, would come back at full strength for this coming season. But now he's out again. So he's likely going to be ready to play in 2021, 22. And that's all I have for that. We have gotten a little more info for the upcoming NBA season because I believe we had already talked about the fact that the season would be going and the start date would be December 22nd. Well, now there's a little bit more insight as to what we're going to get for the season. It's going to be 2 stages of basketball. Not surprised. They're going to be doing a play-in tournament on May 18th through 21st. There will be a chance for 20 teams to make the playoffs. If I remember this correctly, I'm going to, be freestyling a little bit, but this is more than likely in the article. And if it's not, or if it already was and I just didn't read it, I'll take that L in pride. The NBA announced the structure and format of the 2021 season on Tuesday night, including exactly how the upcoming schedule will be released. The schedule will be released in 2 halves, what the league is calling the first half and the second half. The schedule for the first half of the season, which will run from December 22nd to March 4th, will be released around the start of training camp for December the 1st. The league won't release the schedule for the second half until later in the first half. That will include the rest of each team's 72 regular season games that weren't previously scheduled, as well as any games that were postponed in the first half of the season that can reasonably be added to the rest of the schedule. The All-Star break is set to take place in March 5th through the 10th between the 2 halves. The second half of the season will run from March 11th to May 16th. The play-in tournament will be held from May 18th through the 21st before the playoffs tip off on May 22nd. Each NBA team will play the teams within its conference 3 times for a total of 42 games, while playing the teams from the opposing conferences twice each, which then gives you your 30 games. Within each team's division, the league has already assigned which opponents will be played twice at home and which will be played twice on the road. So it's kind of like we're getting the tease of the schedule, but they're telling you what they're doing for the format. They're not going to tell any games. I said this before, and I'm saying this now. They're doing this based on the mere fact of getting the Christmas games. Christmas games are not relevant based on the jersey sales or anything like that, but it's airtime and it's something that will be on during Christmas Day. Each division within a conference will then play all 5. Well, within each team's division, the league has already assigned which opponents will be played twice at home and which will be played twice on the road. Each division within a conference will then play all 5 teams from another intra-conference division twice at home and all 5 teams from the remaining division twice on the road. The league said its board of governors unanimously approved the play-in tournament proposal on a 1-year basis in a vote Thursday. The teams with the 7th and 8th highest winning percentages will have 2 chances to make the playoffs, while the teams with the 9th and 10th highest winning percentages will have 1 chance. The 7-8 game will be between the teams ranked 7th and 8th, while the 9-10 game will feature the teams ranked 9th and 10th. The winner of the 7-8 game will advance to the playoffs. The loser will host the winner of the 9-10 game, as had been previously reported. The NBA Finals are set to run through July 22nd. The Summer Olympics begin July 23rd, and the qualifying tournaments for the remaining 4 spots in the men's field are scheduled to run from June 29th through July 4th. They are pushing everything as best as they can, and this is going to be more dangerous than soccer's year-round run. And to be fair, I'm not wishing or saying any of this in a negative connotation. I'm just saying this in a very observatory manner of just keep your eyes very close to how players and teams are going to manage their time. I would not be surprised, based on the NBA with the Summer Olympics, if we're going to send a team. That much is clear. But if we're going to send a team over, it's not going to be a team that anyone that's on that team won't have played in any playoff games. Early prediction, but just something that I'm kind of observing and looking at with this all happening. I mentioned this earlier, but a lot of trades did occur during or before the actual draft. One of the big trades was that Drew Holiday went to the Bucks, and they traded him for Eric Bledsoe as well as picks. Let's see, because I want to make sure I give you all the breakdown of the trade. The Drew Holiday trade consists of New Orleans receiving their 2020 first pick, their 2024 pick, 2025 pick, which is unprotected, 2026 pick, and 2027 pick. Cleveland will receive a future second round pick from Milwaukee by lifting the protection on the 2022 first pick from George Hill 2018 trade that the Bucks owe them. I don't really, and I don't. Let me backtrack, because I don't want to sound like that fan. Eric Bledsoe was supposed to be the third guy for Milwaukee. Drew Holiday will help Giannis in a big way, because now Giannis does not have to be forced to be put in a position to create a play. Even with Bledsoe on the floor, Giannis was still having to create plays. If you really go back and look at a lot of the season, that's what we saw with that lineup when he was there. It's still early, and we also don't know how the chemistry will play out from that. Note to self: if I do another show, no ice with the water, because it is loud. So that's kind of what that all played out to be with that particular trade. There were other trades that occurred. Bogan Bogdanovic, I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He was initially supposed to be traded from the Kings, but the Kings look like they're trying to figure out something else, maybe a sign and trade. So they're gonna. That's one of those. Stay tuned. We'll keep an eye out for that type of deal. Trevor Ariza was traded, like I mentioned earlier. Ricky Rubio was traded. There were so many trades that happened on draft night, because now everyone has like that time of figuring out where they want to go, and what they want to do. I don't believe we talked about it on the last show because it didn't occur at the time, but Russell Westbrook wants out, and James Harden possibly wants out. James Harden was offered reportedly a 2-year, $100 million extension. I believe someone was stating that he still had 2 years left on his contract, which cool, great, fine, whatever. But it wasn't, I don't think it was enough. Apparently it wasn't enough to really look for him to stay. He wants to go to Brooklyn. They've thrown some proposed trade package deals on the table. The main thing you want to look at is Houston does not want to be left with two things. They don't want to be left, three things. They don't want to be left with a bunch of draft picks. They don't want to be left with a bunch of players who may not even stay on the team. And they don't want to be left being forced to start over. Because that's basically what would happen, because it's already been put out there that Westbrook wants to leave. A couple teams have been, kind of giving their thoughts and feelings about that. And it's just one of those things to look at and really wonder what's going to come about from it. It could all turn out where this, I ain't going to say this will all be a dream or a blur, but it could end up just being, in hindsight, that no one goes anywhere and they just play next season. So that's also another option to look at or consider with this occurring as well. And that's kind of what it is right now. Like, that's mainly where we are. That's what it's, been about for the last week with the NBA. There are probably going to be more stories. Today is Thursday. I would not be surprised by Tuesday if a big name gets traded, because if I remember correctly, free agency is going to be starting tomorrow. Free agency talks begin tomorrow. People are eligible to become free agents or do deals, I believe, on Monday. And I'm freestyling a little bit with that. But I do remember them bringing that up on the NBA draft when they were showing that earlier. This is a sports/stuff story, so I'm putting it right in the middle to give that proper balance, because I don't want to not have it be a story, even because it is by far a story. So I want to make sure I do address it in being a story. But the big news that broke is that the NFL Pro Bowl will be hosted in Madden. So they're finding a way to make this a safer, more simpler process, of course, with all that's been going on. They're gonna be canceling the 2021 Pro Bowl game. News that went largely unnoticed since very few football fans care about it. But today, the NFL announced it will resurrect the Pro Bowl as a week-long digital event, with players competing in EA's Madden NFL 21 instead. The details are scant outside of the promise of celebrities, NFL legends, current players, and streamers, according to an EA press release. Even the exact date is still to come. Pinning one down will depend on if the NFL season is extended into an 18th week. Still, it's a fun, inevitable solution to what has often been the NFL's least necessary tradition. The NFL Pro Bowl fills the gap between the playoffs and the Super Bowl. When the two competing teams rest, naturally the NFL fills that empty space with their equivalent of an all-star game. Though football being a sport with high injury rates, players tend to compete in the Pro Bowl at half speed and soft contact out of respect for each other. And they're just giving that rundown. So this is something that we kind of would expect, because no one really is into the Pro Bowl. And then two, even if you were to have the Pro Bowl, you're not going to have a lot of fans there to begin with anyway. So that's kind of what that was about altogether. And I didn't realize until I did these that I have a lot of stuff to get into. So I'm going to get into these at the 41-minute mark and hopefully not rush them. So I'm going to do as I've been learning to do, take my time but not waste my time. Our first story up in the stuff section is Zoom will be lifting the limit for free meetings on Thanksgiving. A lot of people will not be. Thanksgiving is going to be very different this year. We already know that, but we're really going to see how different it will be this year, because a lot of people do not want to get together and have anything if they can help it, which I 100% understand. They're now going to allow, as spotted on by The Verge, starting at midnight on November 26th, which is that Thursday, through to 6 a.m. Eastern time on November 27th, you and your family will be able to talk over the app for as long as you want. The company announced a goodwill measure earlier this week. A 40-minute limit on free calls has been a feature of Zoom throughout the pandemic. Most of the company's counterpart imposed similar limits on free accounts. Google Meet, for example, captured calls to 60 minutes without paying for a subscription. In most cases, people have gotten around the limit by starting a new call after they're booted from their current one. The nice thing about this gesture is that you won't need to do that. With the number of active coronavirus cases continuing to climb in many parts of the U.S., aka we're over a 11 million cases in the U.S. now, I believe. Might be at 12. I wouldn't be surprised. It's also a prudent move to get people to stay home and protect their loved ones. Smart move, simple to the point, something that is Zoom is being considerate, and I'm here for that. And that's kind of what that story entails and talks about as a whole. The next story is a bit of a local story, and I'm glad to share it for different reasons. One of my schoolmates actually had this posted, and I was able to get a hold of it and read up about what it was related to. And two, the person who's involved with this future endeavor is also a fellow schoolmate. So I think it's awesome that we're learning to be more creative with our resources, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. Is if you have a resource, you have something that's available that can be done, give it a try. The worst that can happen is that it works. Heaven forbid. And that's kind of where and what this entails or brings about that I can see. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Dr. Charles F. Baum has lived on the east side of Henrico County off Azalea Avenue for more than 40 years. He's seen businesses of all industries come and go. But when a grocery store is one of those businesses to leave, it brings stress to the community. That was the case for his neighborhood most recently when Food Right on Richmond and Henrico Turnpike left. You need somewhere convenient to go get some milk, eggs, and bread. And for about 3 or 4 months now, that has not been available to those who live in the neighborhood. His neighborhood is considered to be a food desert, which is an urban area where it's difficult to buy affordable or good quality fresh food. Baum said he can't imagine how difficult it is for people who don't have their own form of transportation to get groceries. Some of these folks have to walk so far. They have to walk miles in order to get to fresh food. We used to have one up the street, but they haven't been there in months. Tyra Gallagher, who works at a dialysis center right up the street, said she's seen firsthand what Baum is referring to. A lot of my patients struggle with being able to get the proper food they need. We've seen the disparities that Black and brown people face looking for clean, safe, and fresh produce in this area. That's why we're here. So seeing the community struggle, Gallagher and Renee Trueheart decided to take matters into their own hands. The mother and daughter duo are opening Daryl's Family Supermarket later this year in Food Right's old location off Azalea Avenue. The business is named after the Trueheart's younger brother who died last month. She said giving the business his namesake is a way for him to be part of the new family venture. Trueheart said owning a grocery store has always been a dream of hers. I've always wanted to have a grocery store and my family always supports me. Even during the pandemic, this is a way for us to give back to the community. The new business owners said the store will offer everything a traditional grocery store provides. However, they have some things unique to them. We want you to come in and get your fresh produce, milk, and pork chops if that's what you want. We'll have space for vendors to come and sell their products. We want everyone to win. To paraphrase where this is going, it's really not much else to read. They do show the logo of the business saying Daryl's Come In Your Family, and they show where it's located. Okay, now that I'm seeing the picture, I do remember where this is, because this is I actually, before going into this a little bit more, I can recall going into that store and getting really good products or good produce at a really affordable cost. And I guess because I wasn't over there at one point or really not stopping there often for anything, I never thought or really realized that that place is closed. And that's tough, because it is a challenge to find good produce at a good cost or good food at a good cost. And I think the main thing that we're looking at is we as Blacks are trying to support fellow Blacks. And this is a perfect way to do so. They have opened up a Facebook page regarding the upcoming opening and just some business information as a whole. So I love this idea and love where this is going. So that is great. That is a great story to share for the community, which I'm all about, doing better on promoting and sharing. Our next story is interesting, weird, and random, but it's a story, so we'll give it the attention it needs. Elon Musk says he tested positive and negative for COVID-19. He received mixed results after being tested for COVID-19 and is currently experiencing symptoms of common cold. He was tested 4 times during a rapid antigen test. 2 tests came back positive, 2 came back negative. He's also awaiting results from 2 PCR results, but the results won't be known for 24 hours. And he just kind of give his whole breakdown about this test. I just thought it was interesting because it's not something we've heard, but it has been something that has happened and or occurred where someone could be tested, become negative, then come back and become positive, and it could flip again type of thing. So this, I don't know if it's the testing, I don't know if it's how it's being treated. I'm still wondering, even from just a generic standpoint, if he actually, has been self-quarantining, but that's another story as well. And that's all I have on that story. Hector Rodriguez, this is a gaming story. I'm not going to talk about it very long. He was able to get back to Optic Gaming, and he's rebranding the CDL Call of Duty League Championship name. It was initially, let me make sure I'm reading this right. NRG's co-owner and CEO Hex Rodriguez has reacquired Optic Gaming from Immortals Gaming Club, having originally sold his majority share of the organization in 2017. If you may or may not remember, he was a big face or a big name with Optic Gaming. If you talked about Optic Gaming, you talked about Greenwall, you talked about Hector Rodriguez. There was no other person that you would hear about other than him. The announcement of the acquisition comes following the sale of IGC's Call of Duty League franchise slot Optic Gaming Los Angeles to 100 Thieves. The 100 Thieves purchase and subsequent rebranding of the Los Angeles-based CDL squad to LA Thieves opened the door for the Optic Gaming brand to be repurposed. After the conclusion of the inaugural season of the Call of Duty League last year, Rodriguez and IGC entered talks regarding the Optic Gaming brand and associated assets. The two parties reached an agreement whereby Rodriguez regains full ownership of Optic Gaming in exchange for the unwinding of his outstanding interest in IGC, including minority ownership of Immortals, the company's League of Legends side competing in North America's LCS League, which is their league championship series. Big news, huge thing. This is just one of those. This is kind of like that tech update or tech world news that it no one really expected it to happen, but it happened. So here we are. So props to him for getting that acquisition to become a thing. Apple is confirming with Mac users that the anti-malware feature isn't a spying feature or a spying tool. They're being forced to clarify the Gatekeeper anti-malware platform works after security researchers suggested the system was violating privacy. The system does not track what its users are doing. Apple said it will change how Gatekeeper functions in the future for further minimize future risks. The story begins back on November 12th when a large number of Mac users reported failures opening third-party apps. The issue also spread to Apple's own platforms like iMessage and Apple Pay, which started to behave erratically for a short period of time. It was caused by Gatekeeper, a security system Apple introduced back in Mountain Lion to check if it should run a piece of software. Essentially, if your Mac is connected to the internet, Gatekeeper will check to see if it's safe to run a piece of software. Say you click launch on Photoshop, your computer will ping an Apple server to ensure that Adobe still has a valid developer certificate. The process ordinarily is quick and invisible to users, except the volume of people upgrading to Mac OS Big Sur overwhelmed the system and slowed it to a crawl. Apple has, however, said it will look to ensure that Gatekeeper will, in future, further encrypt its transmission data and allow users to opt out of the system. And that's just kind of the overall ins and outs of what Gatekeeper is doing in trying to manage your information and access. My Mac that I am currently recording on for this podcast is one of the many Macs that cannot get the new update. Oddly enough, I am not in a space that I want the new update because I'm running what I have on this update just fine. I was able to get my Mac up to a newer, more latest version, and I'm able to get everything that I need hardware-wise, software-wise. I've had this computer running now, we're looking at 5 years. So when devices get to that maximum or peak point, it's the device as well as technology as well as the business cycle telling you, hey, buy a new device. What do you want to do? And that's it's coming, and it's going to happen with a lot of devices that I own. I went through this earlier last year, I believe the last year or the year before, where my Apple Watch stopped getting updates. I had the Apple Watch, I think I had the Series 1. It maxed out on updates. I totally get it. I'm not mad at them for, handling it that way. I did end up getting a newer Apple Watch, but that was because that watch was starting to battle itself in battery life. My iPod Touch, which I know a lot of people will say, wait, you have an iPod Touch? Yes, some of us still use iPod Touch for its purpose. And that's basically what I've been doing is, listening to different songs or MP3s or things of that sort just through my Apple Watch, through my iPod Touch. I'm not looking to get a new iPod Touch anytime soon, and I've gotten as the updates have been coming, I've been able to get the updates. My updates for that stopped a couple of years ago, and I'm good. I don't really need anything new on it. I mean, the only feature that would have been nice to get, but it's not the end of the world, would have been the dark mode, but all isn't lost, you know what I mean? So same applies with that. My iPhone, I'm on the XS Max, still holding on strong. I know within the next year, if not 2 years, I will probably max out on getting updates for that. Why are you bringing all these updates to the circle? Well, any of you who have older MacBook Pros, if you try to do the update, there have been rumors based on Mac rumors stating this, that people are being stuck with a black screen when trying to update their late 2013 or late 24 or mid 2014 13-inch MacBook Pro models to Big Sur. The only way that you can solve the issue is nothing appears to solve the issue, including shortcuts to reset the NVRAM and SMC. An engineer investigating one customer's problem appeared to have resolved the issue after removing an IC chip from the HDMI port, but it's not certain that that's the cause. We've asked Apple for comment. The company has asked at least one owner to send their system in for service, while another said Apple's engineering team was aware of the problem. For now, at least, you might want to hold off on updating your older 13-inch MacBook Pro. There's no certainty this affects everyone. It's a potentially costly headache in the long run. So just be mindful if you're doing, and this is just a general rule of thumb, and this is something that I still have to remember and remind myself as well. When you update your OS, if it's a live OS and you are not sure of it running how it should run, do a backup of your data on your computer. That will at least salvage what you have. Like, I personally will say, to this day or to this point, when I did a lot of what I was doing a couple of months ago, I made a decision and got rid of stuff and didn't really think it through. And then by the time I did, it was too late. But always make sure that you back up what you have before you make a big critical, hardware or software update that your device probably may or may not have even been prepared to do when you thought of doing it. So just be considerate of that in the long haul. Twitter introduced a new feature called Fleets. I don't know if this is supposed to be flash tweeting. I really want to figure out where did they come up with this name, because Some names you like. This could have been an ass of the week in my opinion, but I'm gonna save that and we'll talk about that in a bit. Twitter on Tuesday announced the global launch of Fleets, the ephemeral tweeting feature it first announced earlier this year and tested in various markets around the globe. Now, any mobile Twitter user, regardless of where they live or what platform they're on, will have access to the disappearing messaging feature, which will sit right at the top of the timeline in a row of stories like bubbles. Twitter hopes the new feature will help reduce the pressure around tweeting by letting users express more casual thoughts and feelings while also concerning themselves less with saying something profound or racking up likes and retweets. Fleets start rolling out today on Android and iOS and should be available for everyone in the coming days. That's just all your other fluff and minutia about Fleets. I'm not gonna really read this whole article. It's kind of, to me, and it's the article already states this. The Twitter Fleets is basically Twitter's Insta stories. To say it without saying it, you have the option to do audio, you have the option to do video, you have the option to actually post different messages that are shared. I'm going to be intrigued by it to see if people use it to post music, things of that nature, and we'll see if that occurs when we get there. But I'm not holding my breath about that yet because I don't really see a need to. But that's also me just thinking out loud and just making that as a general statement. FIFA Ultimate Team is often hated and very successful. The simplest way I can put this without really giving this, like talking about this article from A to Z, is that the FIFA Ultimate Team community can and does at times give off a toxic vibe or a toxic energy. And it's also very microtransaction heavy. So if you are a person who has played FIFA Ultimate Team, or if you've watched it be played for as long as it has, you know that everyone who's anyone plays in it. It is very, now that we're in the pandemic, you have it more online based, but it's very competitive even more. So it's definitely gained the legs that no one has expected. And speaking of gaming, before I forget, I have one other article gaming related, and then I'm going to get to pass the message, pass of the week, and just kind of some thoughts. If you have or have not already, if you are or aren't already aware, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One X and S and all those are out. If you are smart, wait on buying your console. Wait until after Christmas. Let the first batch of systems go through their headache and chaos, and then get your system. Now, if you need to get it, if you are in a rush to get it now, I have no knock or no disagreement with you on that. I had this conversation with someone at work yesterday, and I'm still standing behind it now. I get that a new system is out, but $70 for games, I can't spend to it yet. I personally can't tell you the last time I physically bought a video game for my console. And I've had my Xbox One now for over 2 years. The last game I probably bought might have been last year. I think I bought Gears of War last year. But as far as any new games, like the new Call of Duty, the Black Ops Cold War, whatever, not really in a rush to buy it. Like it's just, I'm not as trend heavy with gaming as I used to be. Like I was sitting here earlier. I have a PlayStation Mini, and I literally looked at the amount of games that I have on my PlayStation Mini, because you had the 20 games that comes with it, and then I bought like different USB drives. There's a third one that I'm looking to get because it has some games on it that I really want to, or it has a game that I really want to go back and play. Because I did enjoy playing it when it was on PlayStation at the time. But I'm not like that heavy on the gaming scene now. But I'm just saying all of this to say, if you are looking to get a new system, just don't buy the first batch. Like even everyone who got the new iPhone 12s, cool. If you got it, I'm not knocking you. I ain't giving you no grief at all. But let that first batch go through its chaos. Let those patch and issues come about, and then get the next batch, and you'll get a much better experience. Like, trust me, your phone will thank you, your bill will thank you. All of that will be worth it in the long haul. My twin, shout out to Fred. If you listen to Twin Talk, or if you listen to any of the Armbands Anonymous podcasts, or you listen to any of the podcasts from MagFest, Fred has been on the show before. Chanel has definitely been clutch. She shared this story in a group chat with my colleagues and myself, and I wanted to make sure I put this into a podcast topic. Bud Light made a video game console that can cool 2 beers. Now, the console is called BL6. It will keep 2 of your beers cold. It has 16 gigabytes of memory and 6 games, including Tekken 7 and Soul Calibur 6. It has a built-in Asus projector. It has the form factor of a 6-pack of beer. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not sure why this exists, but I'm not mad about it. And they give you a video that explains it. I love drinking beer as much as the next person, and while I don't usually consume Bud Light, I do have an appreciation for booze companies doing weird video game stunts. Now, I'm all on board with this a little bit, but then when they showed the price, it kind of ran me away. The problem with the device is that they're impossible to get. You can't even find a place to cop a can troller. And the Bud Light BL6 is currently going for more than $1,000 at auction. Beer companies, if you're reading this, please make more dumb stuff like this. It's good for morale, even if I can never seem to get my hands on them. Also a suggestion, if I may, next time make a console that cools more than 2 beers at a time. Gamers need fuel. Technically 2. I think it's like, it shows it being a cooler for the beer, which is great, but it likely can cool any device. Anything that's a can. So if I had like a Mountain Dew can, I can put my can in there and it'll keep it cool, I guess. That's what this is promoting or pushing, which, it's a cool, nifty little thing, but $1,000, I was kind of like, okay. If that's your path and that's your wave, I can't stop you and knock you for where you at with that. Music, I have not really been listening to a lot of new music, because I did just think about realizing what I've seen and or found Spotify wise. I just haven't really been picking up on too many albums. I did listen to 2 Chainz's new album, which is actually pretty good. I found a new podcast that I can't believe I didn't find sooner, called WTF Radio. Let me see if it comes up. Yeah, WTF Landia Radio. Voted the most calming, hilarious, flexibly fact-based, wildly seductive, brand new global podcast of 2020. WTFLRS with Shar Both is a parodic performance art, semi-satirical, feel-good global radio show full of misquotes, improvisational thoughts, subtle set your right humor. Shar's calming, hysterical, hopeful approach to life and news events has attracted audiences across the globe. Think SNL, CC Roast, Tosh.0. We bag on folks here. So make sure to find your humor before entering the WTFLR room. In the end, we hope you will have found love, faith, and a source of inspiration. And like I said, I didn't fully listen to the last show that I found, but I like the direction of where her show goes, with just kind of like what it brings about and makes you think about different things. So that was one thing I found. I believe Meg's new album comes out this week, so we'll possibly be unpacking that next week. I'll be getting into my auditory mode with that album, and that's kind of where I'm at. As I mentioned before, no ads of the week. I could make Facebook ads of the week, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to subtly address what I need to address And I hope that my cable is not broken because I do not want to pay for a new laptop charger right now. So I'll be 100% honest with what I'm about to share. I have been in a very emotional blockage for the last almost a week. A friend of mine who I wouldn't say oddly enough, but interestingly enough, wanted to hang out today. And I wanted to hang too, don't get me wrong, but I also needed to focus on what I'm focusing on. Was trying to get me to hang out. And I just kind of was like, I needed to record the show. And I do want to record the show because I don't want to not do what I'm about to do. You never know when you meet people what impact they have on you until you really see life come full circle. This is probably going to be a pass the message and a pass of the week combined. Let me backtrack because I don't want to. I'm going to make this a separate section. Let me talk about one thing first, and then I'm going to get into that because I want to. This isn't me overthinking. This is me putting it all because I want to be sure that the content reaches you all in the right manner with the right tone. So let me hold on those thoughts and let me talk about something else first. And I guess that was just my laptop saying, see, you needed this break to kind of figure it out, which is good. Today is Thursday. I believe on Monday, Sunday or Monday, probably Monday, I was in between about doing a break away from social media. I took the break. I came back. I promoted, I shared, I talked about different things. And in the midst of sharing my Facebook page, because many of you may or may not be aware, I believe I talked about it on a previous show. I'll look in the show notes to see when I talked about this. But my old Facebook page that had my middle name on it was hacked. And I was the idiot allowing it to be hacked because I didn't manage the account properly. I take responsibility for it. I took responsibility for it. A lot of people were impacted and or affected by it, but I'm sharing today that that page is gone. It is no longer available online. From what I've gathered, it's been deactivated. Now, I'm not sure if that means that I'm going to get assistance with getting that page back. I don't know. I'm not thinking about it in that capacity. When that page was affected or impacted, I decided to make a second page. I'd been managing the second page pretty well, telling people what's going on, updating people, talking about it, apologizing to anybody who had any experiences, even fix things that I didn't even need to fix or put myself in the middle of. That page also got taken away from me. I've told people this multiple times, and I've had different thoughts or experiences about how I felt about it. But deep down in the end, I'm good. I can finally say that I am being released from something that I didn't need or I didn't need to have validate me. I think I spent over a decade trying to look at Facebook validating who I was and what I'm about. When in reality, who I've been all along will always be who I am with or without a Facebook page. And I didn't understand or really get that until this happened. And no, it should not have taken this occurring for me to get it, but it did, and I don't regret it. So that's going to timeline and kind of push us into where I'm at and what's going on now. It's still the loudest ice ever, but we ain't gonna talk about it. Last Saturday, my friend and I were, planning to hang out, have an unwind day on that day to just listen to music and relax. as I'm en route, she shared some news with me about a close friend of hers passing, who I had just met probably a couple of months ago. And it's tough because when you meet someone, for the longest time I would hear the pastor that I've known for years, Pastor Turner, say this. And now I understand the true meaning of you meet people where they are. And she met me where I was, and, has been somebody who I really looked at as a good friend. And I was even, on board with wanting to help her with, getting her business going, as far as the LLC process. Cause I've been now, I won't even say trained, but I feel like I've become better with telling people about how to do LLCs. And it was just seeing what happened to getting the news about her friend passing and someone who I had met took me out. It affected me on a very empathic level, on a very emotional level. And I know I'm going to get, you shouldn't tell anybody about being an empath, whatever. I personally will say that it was a hard loss, and it still is a hard loss. Knowing my friend as long as I've known Angie, and I'm saying my friend like she's planning to be on the show when I do my year in review podcast. Is going to be probably, I will tell everybody in advance, you might want to sit 2 hours aside to listen to that show. That's how heavy it's going to be. How heavy I expect it to be, at least. Excuse me. I say all of that to say, we really have to learn how important it is to cherish life. Kobe was one of those people who truly was a person about making sure everybody had fun and had a good time. And I didn't understand that feeling because I'm one of those people by nature. I show my emotions, and I know I shouldn't. But in this particular, the night we were hanging out for Angie's birthday, I just wasn't there. I wasn't present. And she was able to give me a good energy, good support on just, hey, let's have fun. Let's make this a good night. And that confirmed to me to confide in her as a person. And not a couple days later, I added her on Facebook, kept track of what she was working on business wise, personal wise, life, things of that sort. So when I got the news about this on Saturday, my Saturday was shut down. A good amount of my Sunday was shut down. I really did not know how I wanted to deal with people or interact at all. And right now, I'm beginning to get back into my interactive phase. And I also know that I have to move forward, and I have to work, I have to live, I got to make what life has happen. So all of those factors are fine. It's just one of those things where you learn you have to really not take life for granted. And you have to take people around you, embrace people for where they are with where they're helping you go, become, be, all of that. And, I even, when I went through the whole thing with Facebook being shut down, it was I really didn't know. It was a lot of people who I had as friends on there. And I'm like, how do I, am I about to make this whole PSA? Hey, I ain't got no Facebook. I don't want to talk to y'all. But it was her passing and me sharing, I shared a post related to me being back or returning with using, Facebook, and also just kind of going through my phases, emotions. I really did, if I haven't said it, I think I've said it to Angie, but I don't know, I'm not sure if anyone related to Kobe will hear this show. But I definitely send, my prayers, my sympathies, my condolences. I plan in every way possible to attempt to try to attend the funeral this week. But I just know for a fact that I want to. This show is the show that I wasn't sure how it would go. And I had like, I'm not crying now, but I am hurting. And as the title states, healing through hurt is real. Trying to find a way to heal through hurt is real. Majority of this weekend, I think I cried out every tear that I could, and my emotions were all over the place. I didn't really talk to a lot of people. Most people know that I'm usually like pretty sociable for the most part. And the last couple of days, I really didn't even think about it in that aspect. Even just looking at how I've been just the last couple of days talking to people with just general conversation. Like stuff that should not push me to the edge literally send me to a point where I'm like, why am I tripping about this when it's not even that serious? But things become eye-opening when you're not looking for them to become eye-opening. And this really was eye-opening for me on multiple levels. It humbled me. One of my friends who me and him have had a friendship over 20 years. We've been checking in with each other more often than normal, which is a great thing because he's been needing his time to grow and I've been needing my time to grow too. So it's just, it works in its favor. But, you know, my pass of the week definitely has to be Kobe. And her name was Kobe, Colby. I don't have, and I'm not saying this in a blind manner, but I don't have her page. Like normally I would be able to give the full page name from Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook right now. But just know that you were and have always been an impact on people in your own way. A lot of us will be definitely doing our part to like make sure you're doing, like, we're doing it right. We're doing it better. I know for a fact personally I have to do it better. I didn't understand it when Kobe passed, like Kobe Bryant passed. I kind of was understanding it at the time when Yvonne passed, because that was kind of like that was a wake up call then too. I had endless amounts of ugly cries then, but this one really hit different. Especially with me coming into my form and into my space of where I'm at now and where I'm planning to go. So I think this is probably going to be my first time I'm dedicating a show to someone. I'm dedicating the show to Kobe and her family and her kids and just everyone who she's blessed, impacted, sang for. You know, I say this now. It's like when we were sitting there, it was a conversation about, yeah, I wanted you to sing this. You know, you say you can sing a song, and I'm sitting here trying to come up with songs, but every song I sang, she didn't have a clue what song it was. But it was more interesting of just us sitting there and just laughing and joking and having a good time as good friends. Like good friends, good company, good people. That's a lot of times that's what you need sometimes to get through things. And you don't realize that until it's like you really are put in that position to reflect about it. And it shouldn't take reflection to bring it full circle, but in this case it did. And it still hurts. Like it hurt. It hurt when I found out Saturday, and it still hurts today. You know, I even was telling Angie about it when I lost my friend. She was one of the first people I told. I wasn't over there. I really didn't talk to her a lot about it because I was still kind of like in a state of shock about it even happening. So just value the people, like cherish the people you have, man, and don't lose sight of what you're trying to work on. Like I've looked at my board. I was, you know, dealing with some personal things that was breaking down, and it's like, well, what are your goals and what are your plans? And I know I've always talked about special with, you know, helping me with my planning sessions and things. And I was on this verge of, I want to do a planning session. I want to teach people how to plan. And then I was like, wait, why am I planning for stuff? Or why do I want to help people with planning? And I need to come up with a business plan for my own business that I'm doing. So I'm just sharing these things with you all to bring you to light of knowing if you are in need of that moment of doing so, to slow down, try to slow down. Because if you don't slow down, life will slow you down. And that's and not even being funny, that shit ain't gonna do it the way you want to do it. It's gonna get done, and you just gotta accept it. And you there. You in that space where you gotta accept the slow down. You don't have a control of how the cool down is gonna happen. So that's what I'm leaving y'all with. I know it's like a little bit of a different space and a little bit of a different ending. But I really do want people to, like, if you aren't doing it enough now, really love on people and really cherish the people you have. Do not get tired in social media. And I know I say that a lot. And I know I'm even, saying this even with me having my whole little Facebook moment. But do not get tired in the social media. Tie yourself into good people. Connect with good people who are doing good things. Even if it means you got to get away from social media using another platform to make better connections. Do it, and do it to the best of your ability. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and close out and wrap up this show. I will be back. I don't know if we may have some playoff updates. Well, not playoff, but some free agent updates for the NBA. I'll probably be whisking through all of those if anything wild or extravagant happens. We'll have updates from our weekly picks, and we'll go into next week's weekly picks, and we'll see what other technical and gadget ideas come up. Oh, one more thing before I forget. We're coming up on Black Friday. Most stores are not going to have physical deals. Keep an eye on your deals that you find online. If you find good deals, help other people with those deals. And most of all, remember, if you don't find it on if you don't find it on Black Friday, if you don't find it on Thanksgiving Day, if you don't catch it on that weekend sale, Cyber Monday is always going to come through clutch. And Cyber Monday lasts from November the 30th until December 4th. You're welcome. Until next time, this is the Past BT signing out.
Really appreciate all the support, all the listens, all the likes, all the effort that goes into anyone who has provided any form of content for the past. We're signing out now, but you definitely don't want to miss what's in store for the upcoming episode. If you are interested in getting more information or becoming a podcaster, you can check out buzzsprout.com. And the microphone that you are hearing me use is the Blue Yeti X. I had been using a Yeti for a while. I went back to the Samsung Meteor, but now I'm using the Blue Yeti X, which is everything. Trust me. All social medias, the Pass BT
Pod.
That's THE Pass, as in pass the ball. BT is my initials.
Pod.
And finally, if you are a creator and you want to support a fellow creator, subscribe, like, and comment on the Pass. Until next time, this is your host, BT, signing out.